now it's 7 o'clock. We start on time, German time, and you're Swiss, so I think we both like to be on time.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Wolfi's Talks. I'm very excited to have Alberto from Effetto Mariposa on the show. I met you a couple of years back in Taipei for the first time. We had obviously email contact and so on, and then I know we met in one of these coffees, meeting rooms, and we started to talk about sealant, cafe latex. And I was just amazed how much passion and how much you knew about all this. And I asked you tons of questions and you were all answering them with ease. And I was looking really forward to get you on to talk, because I think it's such an interesting product, and it helps so many people, sometimes a bit under the radar because you don't really know that it helped you. But I think you're helping a lot of cyclists along the way with your product. So good evening, and thank you for your time, Alberto.
Thank you, Wolfi, for having me. It's a pleasure being here. As you mentioned, the sealant, for me, it's like talking about my babies. So it's like when you meet someone and they show you the picture of the kids in the phone. For me, it's like you ask me about the sealant or my products. It's more or less the same. So you just don't get me started, and I just keep on talking, and any question is a welcome one.
No, very good. I want to get you started. So I will ask you about the sealant. So how did it come? Was it something, what inspired you to come up with the company? Where's your background? Tell us a bit more about yourself, about the history of Effetto Mariposa. Where did the name come from? So please tell us all about the products and about Effetto.
Well, even as a kid, I was always passionate about cycling and bicycles. And I knew early on that I didn't have the engine to be very fast on the bike. So I was mainly focusing on enjoying the experience. And as I have a technical background, I decided to become an engineer. And my secret goal was always to make or design my own bicycle. And well, in fact, what I turned out to be a materials engineer, and I started working for Vittoria Tires.
Okay.
And that's where I learned several tricks of the trade. I started as a designer for the tires, so the tread pattern and the different compounds, etc. But of course, tires are a kind of ecosystem, because you're not just making the tire, you're always trying also to cover some other aspects, like ways to repair them, make them perform at the best. So you're really touching several other aspects of the bike.
Okay.
So while designing tires was just one part, because at the very beginning, those were the early 2000s, sealants were just starting to appear. And I was like anybody in the world of cycling at that time, especially for off-road, we were prototyping and trying and testing different blends of sealants to work with tires. And I remember the early natural latex-based sealant with plenty of ammonia were creating horrible bubbles on the side of tires, but people were still using them because there weren't many alternatives. So when after 6 years of working for Vittoria, I decided to create my own company, mainly for personal reasons, because when I started as a young engineer, I working and traveling all the time, being away and going from Interbike Las Vegas to the factory in Thailand, and then back to Eurobike and to Taipei was just a dream come true. But you do it year after year, and you realize that you are missing a lot in terms of being with the family or friends or enjoying other things in life. So I decided to slow it down a little, and that was the idea behind Effetto Mariposa, to do my own thing at my own pace and the way I liked it.
Very good. Who came up with the name Effetto Mariposa?
Okay, the joke is that as I've been raised in Piemonte, which is in the northwest of Italy. It's a beautiful vineyard area. So we're famous for our wine, and the joke is I drink a lot, so I came up with the name.
Yes.
In fact, Effetto Mariposa is a way to summarize, or even better, to summon a message, a whole philosophy with the name of the brand. So the Effetto Mariposa is the butterfly effect,
Yes.
which is a branch of physics that focus on the chaos theory. So where a small change somewhere creates a huge consequence somewhere else.
Yes.
So the flap of the butterfly wing create in Brazil can set off a tornado in Texas.
Okay.
So basically, taking it back to cycling, I wanted to do things my own way, really taking care of details, believing that even if as a small company I cannot really compete on volumes or necessarily on price, I can provide some added value that are absent in some of my competitors' products. So from the beginning, I didn't want to make Me Too products. I just wanted to make something that first made sense for me as a cyclist, and then also provided something good to the market.
How many people are working with Effetto Mariposa?
We are a very lean company right now. We are 4 people plus some other consultants. That's, we are not necessarily trying to be small, but we are really trying to be as efficient as possible. So we cover several roles in even if we are not many people.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. I think obviously the name obviously stands for me always when I think of the latex in the tire, which is almost a product you don't really know you have it, and you don't really appreciate until you see. And we sometimes take the tires off and we see then how many holes it looks like the sealant has fixed. And I think obviously I'm sure you have a lot of people to win important races or just finishing races and so on. So I think it's a great product. And it really works well, yeah. And I love the name as well, obviously. Cafe Latex is a great product. And yeah, it really is interesting. Do you know about any pro riders who you contact or sponsor who won important events and they come back to you and really thank you for these things?
Yeah, sometimes it happens. We're working with, well, in all the years we've been making Cafe Latex, which is now more than, I think it's around 10 years now. There have been some important racers we have been sponsoring that gave us, the signed jersey with the rainbow, which is always exciting. These days we are mainly sponsoring athletes in the Enduro World Series, where they have some very specific expectations in terms of sealant, because they are really taking tires to the limit, and we can also add to that our tire invader, which is our pinch flat protector. So they can really in one month worth of racing, they have like 1 year worth of field testing, because they really take products to the limit. As you are saying, the sealant is very difficult to see unless you really open the tire. So there are races that are won with our sealant, and nobody knows. And perhaps the racer bought the product from us and is sponsored by someone else. So we are not supposed to tell anybody, which is a bit a pity. But on the other side, we know that we are doing things right. So
very good, very good. So for the people maybe who have not really understood what's the sealant we're talking about, can you explain maybe how it works and what products we have and how magically the tire obviously seals up again, and why does it not seal up all the time, and how does a sealant what you produce work?
Okay, so this is the one, the Cafe Latex.
Yes.
It's a joke of words, because it's basically cafe latte. Is good to drink. This one is not, but the feature that set Cafe Latex apart from all the competitors is that it has the ability to foam up. So whenever it's agitated, it doesn't stay liquid. It foams up and it tends to fill the complete tire cavity. In this way, it spreads very evenly, and even a limited quantity is is good to cover a pretty wide surface of the tire, and that allows us to keep the weight very reasonable, very low, which is something that racers appreciate a lot.
Okay.
And the repairing efficiency is high. That's one thing. And your other question, how sealant work basically, is that cafe latex and all the other latexes are liquid polymers, and they become solid in certain conditions. For example, if they are exposed to a sudden evaporation, that affects the pH of the solution and make it unstable, and it sets the solidification. So if you have the sealant in the bottle, you open it, it will stay liquid for a while because evaporation takes a lot. But if you have just a droplet and you throw it like that, it sets quite fast.
Okay, so this is why it is in the tire. It stays sealant and it stays liquid because it is kind of a solid or like a stable environment. And the moment you have a hole and it comes out, then kind of there's a chemical reaction almost like, or that changes this, and then it seals the sand. Because I was always amazed, and people asking us, well, why is this? And obviously I got the explanation from you. So how big would be a hole, or what do you think is a hole for a tire which you normally would say a sealant can seal?
Well, roughly it can be around maximum 5-6 millimeter, depending on the tire casing. Because, for example, if you have a very thin and lightweight cross-country tire, the ability of the sealant to repair the casing is lower compared to, for example, an enduro tire where the casing is thick, because it's just too flexible, and the sealant will have a very hard time repairing it. So it depends. If you look at at us or our competitors, the normal claim is maximum 5-6 millimeter. That's what's realistic, what you can expect. In our case, we have, as you probably know, we are trying to cover puncture from all the different angles, and we even have an additional product that's called Vitamina CL. It's kind of powder that you add to the sealant that can increase the repairing ability. So especially for racers, they add that powder inside the tire to the sealant, and that pushes the limit up to 8 millimeter, which is huge. But we decided to keep it as a separate product just because most users, they don't have that kind of need. And if we added that powder straight into cafe latex, that would prevent the sealant from being injected through the valve, and also make it much more aggressive in terms of a valve clogging. So for a racer, for the big day, it makes sense. For the average user, I think it's overkill. Then we leave it up. We have it available, so if people decide.
So you would just have the regular sealant in the tire, and then you say, hey, tomorrow I have a big race and I want to for sure finish this race. Then you open the tire a little bit so that you get the vitamin CL, like a powder. It's like a vitamin. We have it in the shop. We have it like a vitamin C powder. It's white. You put a little bit inside the tire, and then it automatically mixes with the sealant, and then you have an extremely high performance sealant for that specialty. Do you have a product as well to solve the issue with this clogging the valve? I think you have a little option there.
Yeah. That one is called cafe latex remover. It's a very powerful solvent that softens solid latex. So you just apply a droplet onto the valve, and that will remove the clogging. It's especially useful for tubulars, for example, where you don't have the removable valve mechanism. And if, for example, you decided to treat the tubular with sealant, and for some reason there was some sealant trapped in the valve and the valve is not functional anymore, one droplet of that will probably solve the day.
And if you have it enclosed, for example, if you had a drop on your t-shirt from the sealant and stuff, would it help as well to clean?
It helps. It works much better on solid surfaces, while with a cloth, if the sealant has been absorbed by the fabric, it's much more difficult.
Okay. And will it work as well on tubes? Can you put it in a butyl tube, your sealant?
Yes. In that case, we we have a recently introduced new sealant that's called Vegetalex.
Okay.
Well, I was keeping it for later, but as you asked,
Yes.
so yes, people have been using sealant inside inner tubes for a long time.
Yes.
I remember as a young racer, we used to buy inner tubes, and from Specialized, they had an inner tube called airlock with
Yes.
some liquid inside,
Yes.
and it was effective against the small puncture from thorns. That
Yeah.
was okay, but of course not the big stuff, because with sealants inside inner tubes, the ability to repair damages is okay, but it's not as good as with the tubeless, just because the inner tube doesn't have a proper shape.
Yeah.
So it's round, but when you inflate it, it changes the
Yes.
size. So the
Yes.
moment the puncture is sealed and it again stretched, can
Yes.
reopen. So
Okay.
what we say is that maximum repairable damage in the inner tube is 1 millimeter,
Okay.
which is
Yes. A thorn.
yeah.
Okay. And what about latex or things like Tubolito? Is this something that would work with latex?
Well, with Tubolito are a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
They are is it polyurethane inner
Yes,
tubes,
something like
if
this.
I remember
Yes.
correctly? I remember back in the days there was
Yes.
Pana Racer coming out with a super lightweight polyurethane tube. So these things are coming back to the market like cycles, and they are not very easy to repair. And I know that also sealants have a hard time repairing those. With the latex inner tubes, it's much easier. They can have some other problems that I'm sure you're aware of, in terms of you have to be very careful to avoid pinching them when you're mounting, but also they are sensitive to the shape of the rim
Grim.
and to excessive heat when you are braking.
Breaking.
So
But would you recommend if somebody has a tubular tire and they have a latex inner tube in the tubular tire, that will still be something you would recommend to have a bit of sealant to make that even a little bit more airtight? Would it help? Because some of
yes,
them are losing quickly, so it would add another layer inside the tire to hold
yes.
the air.
Adding some sealant inside an inner tube, a tubular with a latex inner tube will reduce the porosity of the natural porosity of the inner tube, so it will increase the air tightness. That for sure. And then if people prefer to have the sealant as a preventative, or to carry an inflate and repair cartridge, for example, that's a kind of a personal choice.
Yes.
So some people prefer to have the preventative effect. Some other people prefer to carry the inflate and repair just in case.
Yes. We had the other day, last Friday, we were riding and we had a puncture and somebody had an espresso doppio, which was really working well. So that's kind of a little spray can. Oh, you have one, perfect. A little spray can. And how would you use this? So this is something we sell quite a lot to athletes, and they have it on the day of the race. So if you take this with you, how would you handle that?
So basically, as you know, there are many inflated repair cartridge in the market, all kind of prices, and the espresso is not the cheapest, but it's for sure one of the easiest to use. These products here are not an exact science, because sometimes you get a puncture and you normally you think that it's going to repair it and it doesn't, just because, for example, if you have a tubular, the small puncture you see from the outside turns out to be a much bigger gash inside the inner tube, so the sealant won't be able to repair it. But we decided to limit the odds by keeping the product very simple, so it doesn't have any thing that can be threaded on the valve. It's just a very flexible silicone tube that you just push on the valve. It makes it Presta only, but what we are using, well, normally racers are with the Presta valves. So you just push the tube on the valve, and you might want to keep 2 fingers there, but more for the psychological safety. And then you push it. And even if the valve is clogged, the sealant can go anywhere, because also here the tube is very strongly
Right.
attached.
Okay.
And so it works normally.
Okay.
And
Would you have the valve at 12 o'clock or at 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock? What do you think is the best method?
I think the best is to have it at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Having it at 12 o'clock is okay. Sometimes if you have it down, some people are also pushing down on the tire for some reason, so it doesn't work, because if you are pushing the tire against the base of the valve, it will kind of close it from the back. But in most cases espresso works. But there's one thing that most people are not aware of, is that the gas inside is propane. Okay. All these inflated repair cartridge are charged with propane, and this gas cannot be retained for a long time by inner tubes. Okay. So even if you repair it, you fix it, you arrive home, you are happy, the day after the tire could be flat. And you think, my tire is destroyed, I have to throw everything away. No, you just have to inflate it with a normal pump, and it's going to be all right.
Oh, very good. Interesting. So the propane escapes through the butyl or the tubular tire.
Yes.
And, okay, very good, very good. See, when we met, I remember I asked the question, how much liquid do I need for what tire size and so on, and then you said, okay, easy. I have an app.
Yep.
And you can have on Vegetalex. You can download on, I think on iOS, on Android, you can download an app, and you can put your tire size and everything. That's something.
Yeah, well, we it's one of those common questions that we got asked all the time. Yes. So, okay, instead of saying, yeah, you had a couple of ounces or 2 scoops.
Yes.
Okay, people, at least our customers, I know that I'm also talking about your customers, they don't settle with an easy question, the easy answer like that. They want to have a precise answer, they deserve it. So, okay, with this thing here, you can calculate based on the type of tire, on the section, on the width, the quantity of sealant that you need to add.
Very good. Okay. And what do you think is the best way? You recommend to open the tire to the side and put the sealant in, or you think through the valve is a good option? What do you prefer?
Personally, I prefer to open the tire, just in order to, I'm normally testing some different prototypes of sealant. I will always want to have a look at what happened of the sealant before, so I open and study. But I think for most people, it's more convenient to inject the sealant through the valve. With Caffelatex, it's not necessary to remove the valve core.
Yes.
You can also inject it through with the valve core installed and get away with it most of the times. And the valve won't, because Caffelatex doesn't clog the valve so badly as natural latex is, for example. But of course, if you have the time, you can remove the valve core. And with the recent bottles of Caffelatex, we have added a little straw.
Yes.
So that you can just put it on the valve, and there is an adapter here, and you can squeeze the sealant inside.
Very nice.
Recent, I think it has been a running change in last year, and it's more practical.
Very good. Okay. And I think we just quickly touched the product, which is fairly new, which is
Vegetalex.
Yeah, Vegetalex. Which I think is a great product, because obviously sealant, there was a few chemicals inside. It wasn't maybe as user friendly, and now you came up, I think, with a fantastic idea to make something which is really biologically sound. And please tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, well, basically these are the twins from different twins from the same mother. That would be me. In fact, we are very successful with Caffelatex, and we have very positive feedback from most users. But as I've seen an article on a magazine comparing the different sealants as far as the environmental friendliness went, and I saw some claims that were not really accurate. And as I was already working on some new formula of sealant, I decided, okay, let's go for the all natural way, and that's how Vegetalex was born. That, well, at least in concept, and then it took me probably 2 years to come out with the final formula, because I was really exploring new paths. Because with liquid polymers, you know how it works. There are several competitors around, and it's also easy to find benchmarks. But with other product, we started mixing xanthan gum, which is a product that's also used in the mayonnaise. Cellulose fiber, which is paper, and ground olive stones, which are also, it's an industrial commodity, but it comes directly from as a byproduct of oil production. So we were not creating any waste. We were just using it.
So you have the grounded stones of an olive, and this is kind of helping you to clog the hole, if I understand correctly.
Yes. Because the cellulose fiber is a great way to create a network when the sealant comes out from the puncture. This creates a kind of net, but you have to have some small particles that will fit into the parts. And the xanthan gum is kind of cement everything. And it's a completely different functioning compared to latex, where you have a polymer that becomes solid. So we were really exploring a different path. But the result, after testing and fine-tuning and everything, we have a sealant that is basically as efficient as most latexes. So in terms of repairing speed, and also the damage you can repair is comparable. Of course, we have to use a little bit more. But I would say it's like 20% more in terms of quality, or quantity. So if you use 80 milliliter of Caffeiletics for a certain tire, you use around 100 of this one. And I would say for most cyclists, it doesn't really affect their performance.
And it's really 100% biological. So even if you would swallow it, it wouldn't make an effect.
Nothing. It's like it's like eating chopped wood. It's not good, but it won't kill you.
That's interesting.
And there are some other features that come with the Vegetalex. And one thing is that it's quite easy to clean compared to latexes. You know that latex are difficult to clean. With this one, it's easy to make the tire new again by removing all even when it's solid. And it doesn't suffer because of CO2, which is another common problem with the latexes, because they can made unstable if you inflate the tire with the CO2 because of the sudden drop of temperature. And it's in fact we don't want to make one that is, we want to say that one is better. Of course, for some aspects, for the natural argument, there's no comparison between Vegetalex and any other sealant in the market. From the performance standpoint, you gain something, you lose something else. So in terms of sheer speed of repair, probably Caffeiletics is still a little bit faster. And of course, it's also marginally lighter. But Vegetalex is more durable, easier to clean. And I think that then it's a personal choice. We don't want to say that one product is good and the other is bad. We're going to let the customer decide by himself.
If you would say a common mistake people are making when they're installing one or the other sealant, what do you think is an advice, or what do you think is something people should think of to avoid the problem with the sealants?
I think one of the common mistake is the wrong quantity of sealant. So as we are familiar with sealant, we have realistic expectations. So we know that if we add a very small quantity, then after a while we have to top it up, and we cannot expect 6 months down the road that the sealant is still effective and we get a big puncture with repairs. But I understand it's human nature. You buy a bottle of sealant, you want to make it last, so you just add a little bit, and then if you happen to get a puncture, it doesn't work and the product is not working. That's why also in our iCafe Latex app we suggest the quantity and then the expected lifespan of that quantity inside the tires. Then also the weather is a factor. In Dubai, with the kind of heat you have when it's really hot, you have to top it up more frequently, because the evaporation of the sealant is really eating away from the potential lifespan.
Very good. And would you recommend after, let's say, half a year to take the tire completely off and clean it inside, remove the old sealant, or how often would you recommend to do that?
I would say that once per season, when the season is over, if, for example, the tire is not completely worn out, you might want to open it up and just remove some big solid clumps of sealant if there's any. I don't think that it's necessary to completely strip the tire, remove the sealant, the dry up sealant, just the bigger parts. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Another interesting product you have is the Tire Invader, which is really good, especially for our hard and rocky terrain here in Dubai and in Hatta. So do you have a sample of the Tire Invader by any chance? Very good.
Yes.
Well prepared.
Okay. I came prepared.
Very good. Thank you.
So basically the Tire Invader is a tire insert which helps against the pinch flats. I want to say that I'm not a big fan of tire inserts.
Yes.
The way they were for a while, the craze in the market, and several consumers were led to believe that they needed to have tire inserts, otherwise they couldn't ride anymore. I think they are interesting products for a very specific riding terrain or necessities. But I don't think they should, the rider should accept to carry huge weight in order to have this kind of protection, unless they really ride in the mountains or do crazy stuff. So my approach was to take what I was thinking is the main feature of this kind of products, without compromising in terms of having a very high weight or very difficult mounting experience. So Tire Invader is kind of a simple product with what I think is the best material for the task. So it's EVA, which is the kind of polymer that is also used in sports shoes for the soles. So it's very tolerant to repeated impacts, and it has a very high energy absorption without getting damaged. The thickness and the width are optimized for specific bicycle uses. So they are not like a motorbike product that were scaled down. They're really thought for bicycles. And that's why the weight of a Tire Invader is between 40 to 90 grams per Tire Invader, depending on the width, which is easily less than half of some of our competitors. But my other goal while making Tire Invader was not to leave to the tire pressure, to the inflating pressure, the responsibility of how the tire behaved. So Tire Invader is just thin. It doesn't really affect the way the tire flexes. But it really helps only when it's needed. So when you end up pinching the tire against the rim, that's where the Tire Invader comes to play and prevents damage to the rim or the tire.
Very good. And the cool pattern you have as a hole inside, this allows obviously the sealant to float around, but I thought this is really cool. And we can see, I think for all the people who remember what this is kind of the little monsters and invaders came down and you had to play this computer game. That's maybe 30 years ago, or how long ago is this game?
I think it was in the late 80s. It's already prehistoric for most kids today. It's something they don't remember. But I know that when I was thinking about how to create this feature for tire invader, so as you mentioned, to allow the sealant to move around inside the tire, I decided not to make the classic hole or a square or anything, because as a kid, I remember that game, and I thought it was fun to put together the name and the tire invader and the space invader. And I discovered down the road that retro gaming is a thing. So it's really popular for there's like believers that are playing all the video games in emulators in modern computers. So yeah.
Very cool, very cool. No, it's a great product, and we see really it helps against the impact. Obviously, we have a lot of rocks, and sometimes the rocks appear out of nowhere, and then you hit that rock and you damage the rim, you damage the tire, and this little foam insert is really nice, and it's kind of horizontal. If this is the tire, so that the tire invader sits to the side, and then it's obviously the size of the tire which determines what size you need, and we have different sizes, and then you cut it in the correct size for the wheel diameter, and then there you go.
Yeah, also that little thing in order to being able to cut the product to the right size of the rim. So you have 9 for 29, 7.5 here, and we even have 26 for people who are still on 26. And that allows to keep the number of codes in the warehouse more reasonable. And well, the other thing you were saying, that the tire invader stays horizontal, is my fault, because I was trying to make this little sketch where you see the section of the tire as easy as possible to understand. But I think I overdid it in terms of simplification, because in fact tire invader is not staying flat. It like curves. It's more like like a EU.
And I understand.
And that allows it to stay in place, because some people are asking me, but it will move around, and it doesn't. But looking at the sketch, yes, it might move, but in reality, when it's mounted, it stays more rounded inside against the rim, so it will stay in place.
Very cool.
And the other thing we always say when we get to talk about tire invader is that, in fact, we don't recommend to run a lower pressure with tire invader, just to run the ideal pressure that the person would love to use, but they cannot, because that's a pressure that would work for 95% of the ride, but for 5% of that ride that is a rocky section, they are compelled to inflate more. So that allows to keep the pressure, the right pressure, and survive some more technical stretches.
Just as a safety buffer for the tire.
Exactly.
So, but then you have another product, the Tababuco plugs, which you use if you really have you have a tubular tire and you have a big hole, the sealant doesn't really seal it anymore, then you have a solution for this issue as well.
Yes, well, these little things here are tire plug tools that were already in the market for some years. They are issued from the automotive industry. And I think that they are very nice accessories. One of the problem is they are not very easy to transport, because where you fit this with this little skewer that you're not going to keep them in the jersey pocket or strapped on the bike. They don't look cool. So we decided to make them with a very soft silicone handle, so that you can fit them on the side of the handlebar for a road and mountain bike, but also inside the bottom bracket. So they are very practical to transport. And the other thing we did is that I decided to have also the small version available. So I don't know if the camera can see it. There is a 3.5 skewer. So it's a skewer for the 3.5 little plugs that I have here, and the other one for 1.5. The small plugs, they have a bad reputation for not working, but in fact, they got this reputation because they are normally used with the bigger fork. So if you have a small plug and the big fork, you are opening the hole too much. So this is the big fork. If you have the small plug, the fork is just too big for it. So we made this very small, like a tiny fork that make it ideal for the small plug. So especially for gravel tires or road tires, for tubeless, you have a higher pressure, and sometimes even a small hole is difficult to plug by the sealant. So with this tool here, you can work great with those kind of tires that are at higher pressure, and repair puncture that will normally be a problem with the sealant alone.
Very good. So let me say, when the olive stone in the latex doesn't work, and then you see, okay, it's using out the latex, then you go and see how big the hole is, and either you take the one from the handlebar or the one from the bottom bracket, depending on the size of the hole. What you do is you push through in the hole and pull it back out.
Basically, you have this little you fit the little plug on the fork.
Yes.
You identify the hole. You just plug it inside, and you let, for example, 3-4 millimeter of this rubbery worm outside. You remove it, and the worm stays inside.
Yes. Okay. And I don't have to worry about the remaining excess. This will just fall off once I'm riding. I just leave it in.
Yeah. Well, I know that some people are obsessed about cutting out the excess.
Yes.
And in some cases, it's true that if you leave it too much outside and you break exactly the right spot,
then you might pull it out again.
But okay, yeah, you really have to. There's really to be your unlucky day. That day, you better stop and call someone to pick you up. But if you cut it too short, that's for sure the plug is going to end up inside and doesn't serve any purpose.
Goes back again. Okay, I understand.
So I would say, in most cases, leaving a little bit of excess outside is no problem.
Obviously. And the main point is really you have a hole, and then you go and plug something in, and then the latex, that the hole is smaller. You create a smaller hole with that plug, and then the latex is again in the position to do this job and seal the tire. Very good.
That's exactly the idea behind it. And we've seen that with obviously the Tapabuco plugs, they work with any sealant, and also with the Vegetalex, it works in a slightly different way, as I was mentioning, with the fibers, etc. It works great. So
very good, very good. Then there was another issue you were set out to solve, is obviously frame protection and all the damage people get on their frames. And obviously we see this here as well a lot when people are riding and they have the rocks, and the rocks are pushed up from either the guy riding in front of you or just from your front or rear tire, that it smashes the frame. And you came up with a nice idea with frame protection.
Yes, well, we call it shelter. And it's just an adhesive transparent frame protection, and we decided to increase the range this year. So we have 3 different thicknesses: 0.2, which is very thin, just against the scratches; 0.6 and 1.2, which was the original shelter. That's really also used for downhill or very intense riding. And we have it available as rolls, 1 meter rolls, normally 58 millimeter of width, something like that. But this year, with more and more carbon bike with huge tubes and also e-bikes, we added the big boy, the 80 millimeter, that really covers beautifully all the biggest down tubes.
Okay. So what you do is you just kind of, you have your new bike and you want to protect it because you want to keep it nice and shiny. And so on the down tube or on any tube you want to protect, you just add this. And then obviously it's very strong against impact. And it was interesting that I remember one year at Eurobike, we were sitting in your office and I couldn't even see it you were gluing it on the table.
Yep.
And we were sitting there for a while and said, okay, you didn't notice that we glued something. So it is, most people think, oh, maybe it doesn't look nice on my bike, but even on road bikes, we can put it on that part, which is maybe it gets damaged otherwise from a rock, from a stone. So it's almost invisible what you are doing.
Yes, well, in fact, that was one of the purposes, but it's also something that we learned how important it was for down the road. Just because we changed the way it was made, because originally we had a small shelter logo, which was printed. It was light gray. So we thought it was almost impossible to see, but some people were kind of annoyed by it. So we last year we switched to a different production method that allowed us to laser etch the logo on shelter. So basically, it's not printed; it's just a different thickness in the product. You cannot see it unless you have the right angle and the right light. So that allows us to brand the product because we are proud of what we do, but it doesn't interfere with the graphics, with anything on the bike.
Very good.
I think that one of the purposes of this protection is really to provide an invisible layer of protection. There are some other products in the market that are printed with different colors, and normally they are made out of vinyl. They are more like cosmetic stickers. They work, they provide a certain degree of protection, but shelter is really a completely different beast because it's a macro composite. So it has on the upper layer is against scratches, and underneath there is a layer with the viscoelastic behavior that really absorbs the impact. So the upper prevents scratches, but what the underside really dampens the shock. That's the real advantage of using shelter.
Very good, very cool.
And we are also, well, this I'm saying it as a side note. We are also providing shelter to some producer of high-end bikes. We make for OEM some custom-made shapes that they apply on the bikes. And we are not really emphasizing this or telling we are working with this or that. But for me, it's always good when I go and look at some bikes and I see the little logo there.
Very good. That you can be proud to protecting bikes. No, and obviously everyone, it's pride and joy. You get a new bike, and then the worst thing is obviously on the first couple of rides you get that damage. And we sell them quite a lot on the mountain bikes, and customers are super happy. And again, something like a small thing you don't know, but the effect is big when your frame is still intact. And again, a rock can damage the carbon, and now it's protected. And yeah, very good. You went as well, and you put something like the Octoplus kit for helmets. To obviously people when they sweat a lot, especially in Dubai during the summer, and then maybe the padding in your helmet is not working as well. So you created a set of padding which you can replace in the helmet.
Yeah, well, the Octoplus for me was more like a side project that I really did. Also, the rest I do mainly for my personal riding, but Octopus was like, okay, well, why anybody has made something like that? So let's do it. And as you say, with nice helmets, especially if you're riding a lot, after 1 year, 1.5 years of use, sometimes the internal padding is worn out. And you have a nice helmet, but the fitting is not as good as at the very beginning. And it's not very easy to find replacement pad for that specific helmet of that year of that brand. So we decided to make this universal pad replacement kit, also with the little velcros, and it's made in Italy. It's high quality. You can wash it by machine, and I think it's a good way to give back life to a nice helmet.
Very nice. You ventured as well into tools, and you make a torque wrench, and you do some other equipment for the workshop like aprons and so on. So maybe tell us a bit about your torque wrench.
Yeah, well, basically the torque wrench was my first product. So for me, the torque wrench is where everything started, and it has a special value. And when I was still thinking about what I was going to do with Effetto Mariposa, at the same time I was toying with some super lightweight parts. I used to be a
weight weenie.
Exactly, that's the word. And in fact, I was my favorite were German parts like Schmolke, or the Tune, you have or THM, all those kind of niche producer that were making the smallest and lightest and most exotic parts. So of course it didn't make any sense because I wasn't fast anymore, but it doesn't matter. So it was more for a personal enjoyment. And at the time I was toying with carbon bolts. Carbon
Yes.
bolts,
Okay.
super lightweight,
Yes.
and you could save 30% of weight over an aluminum bolt.
Yes.
So it's 20% or 30% of nothing.
Yes.
Which,
Yes.
you could only tighten them to 2 Newton meter maximum.
Okay.
And I had no idea how much 2 Newton meter was. It was just a little bit, but
Yes.
especially with bolts, you don't know if you are tightening enough or not enough, or you are snapping
Yes.
it. So at the time I started looking for a torque wrench, and I discovered that there weren't many bicycle specific torque wrenches.
Yes.
In fact, there were some that were taken from the other industry and rebadged, but they were not made specifically. So I thought I could make a difference, and that is the true story behind the original Giusta Forza, which was the black one. And all Giusta Forza torque wrenches are click type,
Yes.
very high quality, just the best material, and they last for a lifetime, I would say. We recalibrate them, we keep on doing it.
Yes.
And several times we've had torque wrenches that got recalibrated in the last 12 years a couple of times, and every time we send them out with a calibration certificate, and they are as good as new.
Okay.
We have different sizes of the torque wrenches. So this one comes in black with a
Yes.
simple head.
Yes.
Also available as with a ratcheting head.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Yes.
In red, just because. And we also have the anniversary, same range of torque, but comes with a different packaging for the dedicated mechanic.
Yes.
And those have a range of torque from 2 up to 60 Newton meters
Okay.
that covers most of the bolts on the bicycle.
Yes.
But we extend what is available with the small one, the 1/8.
Yes.
Which for me is like a little baby.
Yes.
It works great, especially compared to some other small torque wrenches in the market. I'm sure you are aware of other super portable torque wrenches that are based on
Deflection on titanium.
deflection of a titanium spring, for example, but those are very difficult to use because you have those little marks that you have to align, and one is 2 Newton meter and the other one is 4.
Yes. Yes.
It's a huge gap. So with this one, you just set it up, and the increments are 0.25.
Okay.
So you have 1.25 Newton meter, 1.5, and it goes as 8 Newton meter, and the click is super positive. Yes. So there's no way you're going to miss it. Instead of having to look, where is it? It's there or there.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
And we also have the big boy for those who want to.
For the bottom bracket and
exactly. Yeah. Also some sprockets at the rear, especially if you're using some very lightweight cogs, titanium, aluminum with a super tiny aluminum lock ring.
Yes.
Then you need to tighten. You cannot do it by here. You need to have a torque wrench.
Yes. Very good. And obviously, working with carbon fiber, you have some interesting products as well with kind of for carbon fiber, carbo grip, and we have assembly resin, and we have carbo moves. There's a few products. What are they used for our listeners?
So basically, when after making the torque wrench, I thought I had accomplished something, but I realized that the torque wrench is worthless if the part keeps on sliding after you tighten the bolt to the right torque. And I realized that if the surface is not providing a proper clamping, then it's no use. That's why we made the carbo grip, which is a mounting paste.
Yes.
There are some other mounting paste in the market that do the same, but with a completely different approach.
Okay.
So instead of having a gel with some hard particles like sand or stuff that could scratch the component and also wash out over time, carbo grip is a silicone resin. So it's really something that will stay in place. and provide a very grippy surface. Not only it will not wash away with water, but it will also prevent water from getting inside because it's silicone after all. And it also provides a very good way to prevent creaking on a BB30 bottom bracket, for example, when mounting the bearings.
Yes.
It has many applications we discovered over the years. For example, also when mounting the old school slide-on mountain bike grips.
Yes.
If you spray them with a carbo grip, it
Yes.
allows to insert them very easily, and after 2 minutes it sets, and there's no way you can move it unless you blow air inside, and then it comes off.
Very good. Okay, that's interesting. So obviously we use this on all the parts. You would do it in combination with, let's say, an aluminum stem and a carbon handlebar, or use carbon or for aluminum seat post and a carbon frame, or carbon and carbon. So what you do is you spray it on, and then it obviously increases the friction, protects from water going inside.
Yes.
So I think it's a very useful product for everyone who's working on their bike, and obviously we use it in our workshop. Yeah, it's a great product.
Yeah, well, even there were some specific application where carbo grip was very effective, also to prevent galvanic corrosion. If, for example, you have a titanium frame and you use a titanium seat post.
Yes.
I know it's not a problem anymore these days, but back in the days there used to be a kind of a cold welding of the product that was really making one, and carbo grip prevented that.
Okay. So even on titanium parts, you would say it's good. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. Yes. You came up as well with a special carbo cut, which is a special blade to get a really nice and precise cut, and without flakes on the carbon fiber tubes and so on, or the handlebars.
Yes. Well, this carbo cut is a small hacksaw with a blade that has a tungsten carbide grit edge cutting profile. So instead of relying on small teeth that are shredding away a part of the product, that blade has just very hard particles that really grind through the carbon, and create a very straight cut. So you don't have to, after sometime when you're using a normal blade to cut carbon, you after need to use some sandpaper to make the burrs, take the burrs away. And with carbo cut, you don't have to do that. It just cuts very precisely, and the blade is 10 times more durable than a normal blade. So even if it's expensive, we say 10 times, but it's probably more. We are conservative, but yeah, it allows to make a very professional work and also repeatable.
Very good. What's your favorite product of the whole range? You mentioned the torque wrench is something because it's the first product, but is there any other product when you think, okay, it doesn't really get the attention of the market it deserves?
Well, I think that it could be the small torque wrench, because we just introduced it 1 year ago, couple of years ago, and it doesn't attract very much the market because people are still going for our 216, sorry, the normal size torque wrenches. But I think the small one, the super portable, is very appealing. But I think that one of the product in our range that is like a silent performer, because I don't think about it very often, but it sells a lot, is the Caronia tubular tape.
Okay, yes.
Caronia tubular tape is another product I made out of personal necessity. During my time at Vittoria, I glued hundreds of tubulars because I was supposed to random check the production, and also whenever there was any problem with teams that we sponsored at the time, or with the mastic, I was taking the tubulars, mounting them, and see what was happening. So I became fairly familiar with gluing tubulars the old way, the traditional way. I also listened to many pro mechanics, the way they were doing it, and everybody has their own idea. 2 layers, 3 layers, 4 layers, the day before, the day after, weight, seasoned the tubular before. Okay. The reality is that gluing with mastic, you make a great job, but it's just you as a shopkeeper, you cannot afford to make your customer pay for that, because if you count the time and the hassle to do it, most of the time you give it for free because you bought the tubular and okay, you make it work, but it's just very unpractical to do. So I was looking at double-sided adhesive tapes, and what I saw in the market when I started looking was not really great. Some of those tapes were not providing a very strong adhesion, or they were providing an adhesion that was too strong and the tubular almost impossible to remove without really suffering like crazy. So the Caronia tape was born out of that frustration. Okay. And it's just a different product because it has differentiated adhesive on each side of the tape, and on top, well, the base is an adhesive that is semi-structural but not permanent, because you need to have your rim clean after you remove the tape. While the adhesive on the tubular side is permanent. Okay. And it, of course, even if you remove it properly, it will leave some trace on the tubular, which is not a problem, even if you want to use it again, because in case you have to throw the tubular, okay. But if you want to use it again, it's just a tiny layer of glue that you can use it. You mount a different Caronia tape and use the old tubular, and it will work. And on top, there is this thicker layer of a very gummy glue that will adapt to the shape of the tubular. Because one thing is gluing tubular that have a very round shape around across the sewing, but some other tubular have a section that is more like a V. And when it's like that with normal tapes, it was very difficult to make it sit properly. So it was either on the side or the other. And with Caronia, the glue basically moves around and surrounds this V, so that it provides an optimized gluing surface. And the best test and worst conditions for Caronia are, of course, cyclocross racing. And I must say that with cyclocross, we have had very good success with this product. Although I don't think it's a market where you are
not much. Yeah. We like to watch it, but we don't do it. Yeah.
But yeah, well, with Caronia, even though tubulars are not as popular as they used to be anymore, but we are kind of eroding the market from someone else, because our numbers keep on increasing, even if the market by itself is going down. So,
and you have a special remover as well for the Caronia. So you have something still to clean the rim, which I think is a big job. I see our mechanics always cleaning the rims, and it takes them a lot of time. But with the Caronia, you just apply it, and then it's easy to remove the excess glue on the rim.
Yeah, because another aspect that I wanted to cover is that it's okay to use a tape to glue tubulars, but if, for example, it's a wheel set that you already used with mastic, it's difficult to strip it completely to make it completely clean in order to use the tape. So also for that, with Pro Mechanics, I've seen all kind of approaches to removing old mastic, from nasty solvents to drummers to power tools that are not supposed to be used with lightweight, super expensive wheel sets.
Yes, absolutely.
And with the Caronia remover, it's a solvent that comes from the dry clean industry, and that was a good search that I did there, and I found out this product that was kind of adaptable with some tweaks to bicycles, because it's not smelly, it's not toxic, but it really dissolves glue in a super effective way. And you know how difficult it is to remove mastic, but with the Caronia remover, you apply it on the rim, you let it sit for a couple of hours, 3-4 hours, depending on the thickness, and then you go with a cloth and you remove it, and it works.
Very good. And then we missed one more product, the Coronia.
Oh, the Caronia. Yeah. Well, that one is because I really like to make like more difficult for myself. And for cyclocross, there are some tubulars that are used at very high level that are more like artisan tubulars. So they are the cotton they use as a base tape is almost uncoated. So it's raw cotton and can absorb a lot of moisture or dust. So it's very difficult to glue with a dry tape.
Yes.
Because with mastic, it has its own solvent, and it can really soak the tape and make sure it sticks. But with a dry adhesive like Caronia, sometimes we had some problem with the racer at high level that were using those tubulars. So we made it a product specific to prepare adhesion for Caronia on those products. So all the Caronia. And
so you applied on the tire, or you applied on the rim? You applied on the tire in order to make a stickier surface in order to make the glue, the tape glue.
It's just a gluing primer. For industrial applications, all double-sided adhesive tape, they come with the specification of the adhesive primer you're supposed to use. But as Caronia is so much over-engineered for normal bicycle applications, you don't really need to have any specific product for adhesion except cleaning and stripping the rim. But for that very niche application, I needed it. So
yes, very good, very good. You know, I'm conscious of your time, and I think we could talk another couple of hours. But you know, this is exactly what I had when I met you the first time in Taipei. And I hope when you're still listening, I think you're really a geek when it comes to these things. So thank you for staying so long with us. But this is exactly the passion. I think you see some issues, and you don't stop until you really found the perfect solution, and you're not following somebody's trend who has already done something. You really look at it, and I really congratulate you and I really acknowledge you for this, because I think the products you make are unique. They look sometimes very similar to something which is on the market already, but I think your approach is really interesting, and I hope there might be some more problems you faced, so we're going to see some other good products. Is there anything you have in your pipeline, anything we can expect, anything you can say already, or a bit of a secret?
As we are just you and I think. No, well, I'm working with the Vegetalex, the all natural sealant. I'm really I came across some products and some ingredients that really make me want to develop a product around them.
Very good.
And I see some hype in several sectors of our business, like lubricants, for instance, where I think there is a lot to do and to say. Even cutting all the marketing hype that that is normally around, but there is some real value to coming out with the right lubricant that really meets the expectation of the customers. Because to have just a super exotic lubricant that make life difficult for users, I don't think it's probably good for 1% of the market. But if I'm looking at myself and the way I ride, I normally try to reduce the time I spend wrenching on the bike to maximize the time I spend riding it.
True. So I'm super excited then to see what's coming out of your mind. Again, I'm very, very happy we and the team are very excited to be your partner in the Middle East region. Really proud to have your products in our portfolio, and I think a lot of people really appreciate. And I think the Effetto Mariposa affects small things like your latex and everything you make. I think makes a big difference for all the cyclists, make them really happy. And makes them enjoy the time on the bike more than fixing punctures, I think, which we all don't like. So thank you very much for this, Alberto, and thank you for the time.
My pleasure. It's always good talking with you, and anytime you want to spend hours talking about geeky technical stuff, you just feel free.
Super, super. Thank you so much. I think our next week, 2 weeks we have now, and then we're going to speak to Schwalbe, to our friends from Schwalbe, about racing tires, all kind mountain bike, road tires. So if anyone has any questions, let us know. And I'm looking forward to the talk with them. And I wish you a good evening, Alberto.
You too,
and looking
Wolfi.
forward to see you soon. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.